So this is video number one. Um, Basically, I believe I should start with disclaimers. Alright, well, first, hello. Okay, that's a proper start. So, hello. Thanks for checking this out. Hopefully, I'll give you something to think about and reason to come back. If I do, yay me. If not, oh well. So, disclaimer. Okay, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I am not a financial analyst. Generally speaking, if you're watching this, none of it is advice. You're to take nothing from this other than my thoughts and my rambling about my thoughts. And maybe other people's thoughts too. But there's no advice here, so if you're looking for advice, shrug off. I got none for you. Today's topic. There was a PBS episode I watched years ago, not too long ago, rewatched, about a gentleman named Denmark Vesey. He was a black man who bought his freedom. Now, it's not necessarily about him. It's not about the slavery thing or freedom in that aspect, but it is about slavery and freedom that I want to talk about. Now, Denmark was the leader of, and I got to clarify that, was the leader of the first black revolt, or so this PBS episode said. Okay, I thought it was well done, and even as a kid I enjoyed it. The lessons in history I got from it. So the story goes on. He bought his freedom. He, wants to fight against the oppression for the slaves and stuff. Most admirable man in his ambitions. There's no question there. Now, as he put together his team, because you can't have a rebellion with one man. You have to have other people who are like-minded, and he found those. And in speaking with him, he said something, or at least this was in the film, that has stuck with me for many, many years. Do not trust a slave who accepts gifts from their master. Now, we don't have slavery in America today. Okay, obviously, you hear from the various, activist groups or the screaming memes of whatever sort that, oh my God, it's modern slavery. Yeah, no. Okay, that's not slavery. Generally speaking, though, they're not totally wrong. Okay. Let me step back a little bit. And this will help you understand where I'm going with it. Okay. Generally, a little bit about me to give you how I think in lieu of what I'm going to say. Okay? I grew up pretty much what most people would consider poor. I mean, we weren't poor. We didn't know we were poor. We just, you eat what you eat and you do what you do, and, you're a kid. Kids don't know they're poor. Not unless you're hammering it into their head, and then you're a freaking idiot because you're just going to make them feel bad about their situation. Anyhow, so we didn't know we were poor, but we had a number of times where we really didn't have. And by didn't have, I basically mean I ate government cheese and drank powdered milk. Now, at the time, that was, I believe, before food stamps. So that was what, maybe 1970? So, okay, eons ago, blah, 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 when time first began, whatever. But it was in the 70s, and that's how they handled the so-called poor people and their need for food, okay, by giving them the most god-awful things you'll ever eat. Government cheese? Oh man, I still will not eat that orange crap. You know what I mean? Whether it's the fancy ones in a packet, I even tell these restaurants, the drive-thrus, no American cheese, because it's always that plasticky, tasting, nasty stuff, which is no improvement over the gritty, grainy, dirt-tasting American cheese. And as far as powdered milk, oh my. If they wanted answers out of those terrorists, they just had to give them powdered milk. That would have got it. What that does to water, those flavors do not mix. So anyhow, a little later on in life, situations change, whatever. I'm with a different parent, living with siblings, a good number of us, which to help you understand, I come from a huge family. All right, very opinionated, very big family. So time goes on, and we're at a state in life where we're eating lima beans 3 times in a week. Okay? My stepmom would throw in some pasta to change it up at least. Okay, and that was your dinner. Lima beans stirred in with pasta. Lima beans were good, pasta well cooked. Still, 3 days in a week. Alright, there'd be times where we'd eat baked beans twice in a week, and it would just be baked beans. We'd be lucky to have hot dogs. Okay? So I know what it's like to do without. Now, we didn't know we were doing without. We were just told this is what you're eating, you eat it. And you're going to eat it all at that. Okay? And we did. We were hungry. We were going to eat whatever. Generally speaking, later in life, standing on my own 2 feet, I didn't really go through too many times where I went hungry. But I did go through times where I learned, how can you put it, the value of bringing home the groceries. That was my money that bought those groceries. I was proud of those groceries. I enjoyed every meal because I paid for it. I still enjoy every meal I pay for. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy meals that friends were kind enough to offer me, and out and about in events and things like that. But man, when you've worked hard all week and you're going to cook that something that you really like cooking and really like eating, you paid for it. Enjoy it, buddy. It's your reward. Today, life isn't so easy, and people's rewards are, I don't know what. But nonetheless, so we grew up having to do without and stuff like that. And there were other times we were on assistance. There was a time when we were on food stamps. Now, food stamps, to those who don't know, were these booklets of papers that were like basically monetary notes. And you would take that monetary note and you would pay for your groceries with that. You were only allowed to buy certain things. Okay. And I even got to see that abused. How I abused it a little bit myself as a kid. Stole a bunch of them and went and bought candy. But nonetheless, okay. So I'm familiar with food stamps. I'm familiar with Strife and all that. What I wasn't familiar with back then is how people saw that as a deserved thing. Well, I deserve this or I deserve that. It wasn't until in the 80s that I really started to see that. Where people, they should help me because, the government should do this because. Obviously, we lost that Kennedy thing where, that's not what your country can do for you. So anyhow, or wait, I might have had that wrong. I don't know. Anyhow, but nonetheless, I was raised in a way where charity was not something you sought. You did your best to make it your own. What you had, you were proud of. If you didn't have it, was an ambition or a goal, desire, whatever, but you did without until you could get it. And for those who really, truly needed the help, the safety net was a good thing. But slowly and surely, it became what they had to have known it would become. A lifestyle. I'm sure they even preached at the beginning how this will not be, and sure as it can be, it is. Okay, people live off of this state. Okay, it's not just food stamps. You're paying for kids' daycare. They call it pre-K. It's daycare. Anyhow, it's a whole nother subject. But that's paid for by somebody else's tax dollars. The medical stuff for the young, that's paid for by somebody else's tax dollars. Oh God, so many other things. I mean, there's housing assistance, assistance with your power bill, you can get assistance with your cable bill, you can get assistance for your cell phone bill. If you can tell enough lies about how hard and difficult your life is. I mean, your life is so hard that you have to have cable. Okay. So anyhow, we have really gotten so very reliant on the government to pay for much of our lives. Okay? In some ways, even including with tax incentives. Okay, now, keep all that in mind when I tell you this next little bit. During Trump's election, a man named Sumner and his collection of essays known as The Forgotten Man came to light. It's a wonderful series of essays. It's just, my whole problem is after so many of them, it's rather repetitive. He makes the point without emotion or anything like that. It's a very logical, rational explanation of why we get where we are, how we got where we are, and why we're going where we're going. Okay, and I mean politically, socially, and via both of those economically. Excuse me, it's a little chilly out here today. So anyhow, he talks about how the affluent and altruistic people get to the people in leadership, and they get together and they say, wow, look at all those poor people. Somebody needs to do something for them. Now, generally speaking, altruistic and affluent people do donate a lot of money to many good charities. There's no question. And they do good works with their wealth. Many do. Okay, they also pay a high amount of taxes. But nonetheless, even if they dumped all their money into it, the things they want to be done for the lower class, the poor people, could not possibly be afforded. Money has to come from somewhere else. Well, the great pool of money in America is the middle class. Anybody who knows anything about America, you pretty much know that's who they're always taxing for the most, you know? They like to say, oh, we'll tax the rich, and generally speaking, even if they took all the rich's money, it wouldn't be enough to do nothing. Might run us for 6 months or whatever, if we're lucky. And then we'd be broke again. So anyhow, the middle class is considered the forgotten man. The problem is, in this story, the person who's really forgotten is the poor. The people that all these good deeds and this good legislation and these good programs are out there trying to help. Nobody really steps back and says, whoa, 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 what are we doing here? Everybody just says, oh, they don't have, let's give. They can't get, let's make it available. I hear that so much on the news. I even hear it amongst the general populace, and that kind of bugs me. So anyhow, what happens if you start giving people more and more stuff? Well, first of all, the reason that the politicians like it is because, well, now they look like a good guy and look what they've all done, and hey, vote for me. Especially you people that we gave stuff. Vote for me because I gave you stuff. You know, but generally speaking, we, on the other hand, of course, you know, lower income people, we're quick on the whole don't want to miss an opportunity of getting something. Okay, a lot of people are quick with a handout. And I don't mean handout as in giving, I mean handout as in receiving. Now politicians know they'll get that vote, and then they can do the feel-good interviews. Oh, we helped all these people who were just too stupid to do it for themselves. They won't say that. It's generally those people, they think you're stupid if you're on a lower income bracket. So, in that same way, I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, a slave to his job and a slave to the bottle. A number of different comments where a slave to is connected. Generally what that means is you're either so addicted to it or dependent or whatever that you are going to do that. It's going to happen. Well, are we not addicted to the government dollar? I mean, think about it. Okay. Let's say you've got your average lower income family. They're getting, I don't know, from what I've seen, my experience speaking with others, knowing people, several $100s a month in food assistance itself, and I think it's about $250, basically $1,000 a month for food assistance, $250 in available cash. Which, trust me, a lot of drugs and vacations are paid for with that cash. And gotta have those drugs. That's why you need that home, or that's why you need that SNAP. You know what I mean? Because, well, couldn't afford both the drugs and the food. Let the government pay for the food. But nonetheless, you've got that. You've got the child benefit thing that you get every year. You have, what else? Well, like I was mentioning, the health care and this and that. I mean, if you're on the government dole, we know you're, in some areas, are making like $75,000 a year. What if the government all of a sudden said we're not doing any of it? Oh my God, the world would just shit itself. I mean, it would be a very bad day for a politician to say we're ending all this. Hold on a second, got to get a dog. Sorry, she's deaf. I can't just whistle to her. Easy. Alright. So, if government took all that away, people would freak out. It would be one of those moments where you would almost expect a revolution. Alright? Not because we're being taxed too much, but because they're taking away a bunch of free stuff. Well, not free, stuff given to one, paid for by the other. Okay, none of this stuff is free. It's all your money. It's all middle class. It's all our tax money from whatever. And we give away so much money. Okay, well, what if the government said, we're just kidding, but if you do this, you'll stay on. Everybody else, we're kicking you off. But you have to do this. What is this? Well, be imaginative, be creative, right? I don't care. Consider whatever this is. The government could be pretty messed up, and we've seen it through history. Okay, what if they say, well, you got to rat on your neighbor to maintain your status in the consumption of somebody else's tax money? And generally speaking, you might be inclined to do it, I would think. Now, I am not tied to any subsidy or anything like that. I live off of me completely. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a painter. I got a job. So anyhow, if you think about it, aren't we slaves to the system? I mean, I remember back in the 80s, it was a man trying to keep us down. It was mainly black people that, and to some degree it was a bit of a joke amongst whites, but it was the man trying to keep the people down. God, I never thought they were right back then. I was like, it's just you keeping you down. And to some degree, I still stand by that, I mean, if you let people keep you down mentally by telling you somebody's keeping you down or that you are down, you'll stay there. But generally speaking, yeah, in the end, it's kind of true, isn't it? all these tax dollars, because I mean, as soon as you try to get away from it a little bit, you're off of it all. Because they put this economic measure of you have to make so much money or you can't make this much money. But generally speaking, I mean, once you hit a certain point, they give you the boot straight up, no more, goodbye, F off, whatever. They're done with you. I've seen when that happens. It really bothers people. It really does. Yep, because now they have to be 100% self-reliant. I'm generally guessing those people don't any longer vote the party that gives them the most stuff. Okay? Because now they're probably a little upset that other people are getting it and they're not. Okay? And that's almost as bad as voting for getting this stuff. Okay? But nonetheless, those people who are still getting the stuff will do what they can to maintain that. Another kid in the house. I mean, how many stories through the last dozen years have we heard of welfare moms? I hate to put this on the ladies, it's because the men ain't stepping up, but the welfare moms who got like 8 kids. You don't do nothing with them 8 kids. Kids out running the street causing all kinds of hell and havoc, but they got 8 kids because, man, that gets them a lot of money. I mean, think what they get just once a year, let alone all the various stipends for the various things. Oh my God, that must be those people living at 75 grand. But that makes us a slave to the system. You will do as you are told if you're getting that kind of money. Because you do not want to lose that kind of money. You become dependent on it. It becomes an addiction. In the same way, you become a slave to your job. Part of the reason you're a slave to your job is the benefits are good, it pays well, it works within a schedule you can deal with, whatever reason. But generally, you tie yourself to your job. Okay, so anybody who's a slave to their job, it is bit by their own doing. If you're a slave to the bottom, I'm sorry, that's also by your own doing. And that, my heart goes out to you a little bit more. But at the same time, you can beat that addiction. You can quit that job. Generally speaking, I have seen where people beat the addiction of living under the government's control. I mean, think about it, all right, what's that, Section 8 housing, I think they call it? Basically, government subsidized housing. You live where they tell you. You don't go shopping around, oh, this is a nice neighborhood, let's go ahead and see about renting this place. No. There's a selection of places and you get to choose from. So the government gets to decide where you live. Now, okay, and you might say it's a little far-fetched. I don't care what you say, the point is relatively valid. Foods, good example. Oh, WIC. WIC is a wonderful program to assist young mothers in making sure their children have nutrition. But you can only buy this, you can only buy that. Now supposedly SNAP is the same kind of you can only buy this or you can only buy that. Yeah, stand in line at a convenience store, Citgo, whatever, and you'll see there's no truth in that statement. Yeah, why those people don't get busted on anymore. So anyhow, you're not willing to walk away from the free money for obvious reasons. I mean, who wants struggle or strife in their life? I never wanted it in my life. But I've got to tell you honestly, for those who have had struggle in their strife in their life, they generally end up a better person. Okay, if you've had it all handed to you, much like the government's handing it to you, you don't have the same self-worth. You don't have as much drive, as much goals, ambition, things of that sort. Generally speaking, you're not free of mind as well as of body. And really, that's what most of this is not a slavery of the body, it's a slavery of the mind. you know? So it brings me back to Vassal, or Mr. Vassal, Denmark. Do not trust a slave who accepts gifts from his master. Generally speaking, as the years have gone by, I've seen the type of people who are stuck on those food stamps thing, and a lot of times they're not really trustworthy people. They aren't. They would sell out their brother. Hell, I'll tell you honestly, remember that show Cops? Remember how they'd go up to like somebody who was friends with the assailant or whoever got in trouble and say, hey, you know who that was? And they go, oh yeah, that was so-and-so. Yeah, it's that same kind of thing. You know, those people are not trustworthy, are not, and don't get me wrong, I am not saying everybody on these programs are bad, not trustworthy, or this or that. But I've got to tell you, living amongst them, that I think if the government said, hey, do this for us or we're going to take your stuff away, they'd be stepping in line to do whatever. Do not trust a slave who accepts gifts from his master. And right now in America, our, what do they call that, social security net, are basically the programs we have to give money from the middle class to the lower income, is a bit of a form of slavery. And the truth is, more black people in inner cities are enslaved by this than out in the country. Generally speaking, and I don't mean black out in the country, I mean just out in the country, black, green, purple, whatever, okay? But generally the inner city black people, I mean, look at them, that's where all the gang stuff is, that's all the crime is. And I bet you the amount of people there, the overall percentage who are on some sort of, if not some sort of, a complete lifestyle of government redistribution of money, I bet you those numbers pretty high. Yeah, you'll probably see them pretty good out in the country too, don't get me wrong, especially at the lower incomes. And it's amongst blacks and white more equally, I would think. But generally speaking, in the country, you can make a few bucks. You know, somebody needs a tree taken down in their yard. You have to know how to do that in a way that won't smash their house and screw up their whole yard. You make a few bucks. Tradesmen especially do that. And generally speaking, tradesmen are your lower income people anyway. So that's part of, I think, why they're doing this whole $600 thing with the taxes, but it's a whole nother topic. But I think you see less of that influence of government here in the more rural areas, but it's still here. I have seen people freak out when their SNAP card has no more cash available. Okay? I have seen people with carts full of food that they pay for with the SNAP, and then cartons of cigarettes, case of beer, sodas, this stuff that you can't get on the SNAP, in another cart. So they'll have 2-3 carts, and the SNAP is paying for everything that's really good food. I mean, you're talking good quality cuts of meat and everything. I mean, wow, they eat good. And then basically their cash will pay for their junk food. Okay? Which, look at them, they probably shouldn't be eating anyway. But generally speaking, yeah, we have created a class of slaves. It's an economic slave. It's a slavery of mindset. And it's really just, it hasn't ruined our country, because I don't believe our country is ruinable. Thank God for 50 states and forefathers with some insight. But it is ruining the social fabric. Remember that whole thing that went on with Trump about a merit-based society, a merit-based this and that? How was that not like praised to the hilt? Because people in power will remain in power if they can get your vote. They can get your vote if they can buy you something that makes you happy. Making you happy makes you vote for them. Da 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 da. And it goes really both parties. I can't say it's just the one. but it does enslave us. Just like you get that stray cat you feed every day. You can teach it tricks after a while. It's not your cat. It wasn't your cat. It came up and you just been feeding it. But you might get clever with the treat and teach it some little trick. To some degree, it's a slave to you because it will be back every day. And it will perform that trick every time. Because you sustain it. It can go out and catch a bird. It can catch a mouse. It can catch a squirrel. But yours is the easy meal and it steps up proudly, happily, purring, getting your attention. Do not trust a slave who accepts gifts from your master. Okay? Hopefully I've made my point. Generally speaking, if you're offended, too bad. It wasn't meant to be offended. I didn't say any of this to slight anybody. This wasn't to be derogatory or put anybody down. But really, if you want to free yourself, get away from the government handouts. I don't care what it is. Get away from it. Alright? That's truly free, because then nobody can tell you where to put your kid in school, or nobody can tell you where you can live. Alright? That's freedom. Give up your freedom for money, bugger off, don't come back around here. Alright? But nonetheless, doesn't necessarily make you a bad person. Many people have been raised that way. Just get away from it. Alright? Don't be a slave to the system in that way. It really is, how can I put it, heartwarming to see when people find that freedom of not having to worry about this, losing this, or have to worry about losing that. And usually they advance in life well beyond where they were. And it's not because they had gotten those free things that they were able to get there. It's because they were so detested at being there that they got out. So generally speaking, do not trust this slave who accepts gifts from their master. There you go. Alright, well, I hope this kind of made sense. I don't know. But at the same time, I hope you'll come back for another one. My next topic hopefully won't be so all over and meandering. This is all new to me, so give me another try if you didn't like this one, or don't. It's your choice. But nonetheless, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I think it's the most valuable thing you can offer somebody is your time. So I'm humbled that you'd watch this. Thanks again, and well, with that, have a good day.